So we're gonna kick it off, and we'll introduce ourselves real quick. So I'm Caroline, and that's Cameron. We're the co-head line monitors for this year, if you haven't heard from us already. But we're gonna pass it off to our vice presidents of tenting, Ben and Dan, and they're gonna tell you about tenting.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the intro, Stanley. And again, my name is Dan Behrens. This has been Rando, and we're this year's co-VPs of tenting. And we want to talk a little bit about what that means for everyone who's new. And if you've done it before and you just need a refresher, that's what we're going to be going over tonight. So let's just get into it. Starting off with what is tenting. Tenting is, in my opinion, Duke's best tradition. And it's how we determine who gets into the UNC game at the end of the season. Other schools might have lottery systems, or they might sell tickets, and we don't want people to get into the biggest game of the year based on if they can afford it or if they just get lucky. So we're going to make you earn your way into that game, and how you do it is by tenting. So tents are groups of 12 people who live in a tent in Kayville during some amount of time. If you're black tenting, it'll be 6 weeks. If you're white tenting, it'll be 2 weeks. And you live in Kayville, and you have to have a certain number of your people in your group, in your tent, at a certain time. And in order to enforce that, line monitors will come around at random times during the day, blow a loud siren, wake everyone up if it's nighttime, and then everyone goes.
All right.
I think next is registration. Yeah. Okay. So registration for this year, registration is going to open on January 2nd at noon Eastern time. You can go to kvillenation.com. That link will be active starting January 2nd at noon. You only need one person from each tent, your tent captain. Decide who it is before registering. They will go register on behalf of the entire tent, and they will enter the information for all of your tent members. So you need at least 10 to register. You can have up to 12 people per tent. It's recommended that you have 12 people per tent. That makes everyone's life a little bit easier. And in the case that more than 70 people sign up for black tenting within 24 hours of that registration opening, then there will be a test, because we only have space for 70 black tents. That test will be on this year's basketball season. No other years, no Duke history, just this year. And that test, if it takes place, which based on our attendance so far, we anticipate that it will, but you never know. But it will take place on January 5th at 7 p.m. if we need to have it. I think that's it.
So that's a picture of the test, I think 2 or 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 years ago, that was my freshman year. And so definitely try to register as soon as possible. And then that test date is the first Wednesday back. So it would be the first weekday of school, but hopefully everyone would be able to make that, or at least enough people within the tent. And then, so if you are in the top 70 spots, or if not 70 people, or there aren't 70 groups that register in your black tent, essentially the first phase is black tent. And so that will start on the next slide.
That'll start what? January 9th.
Yeah, January 9th, but someone hit this line. Yes, so it'll start January 9th at 5 p.m., which is the Sunday after that first Wednesday back. And then after that, it'll go all the way, like you see, till January 23rd. And so during that phase, this is the most rigorous time of tenting. You'll have to have 10 people during night hours and 2 during the day. And so if you have a group of 12, that basically you're on your own in terms of scheduling who's going to be where and managing managing each other's conflicts to make sure you meet those criteria. And essentially when we call checks, the line monitors call checks, we'll be making sure that the appropriate number of people are there during those times. And we also have listed like the hours. So Monday through Friday, hours are 1 a.m. or the night hours are 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then Saturday and Sunday, it's 2:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. So you get a little more time on the weekend where you only need 2 people. And then everyone else will have to come in, have 10 people later on in the day.
And just for reference, so Monday through Friday, that means like Sunday night, Monday morning, to like Thursday night, Friday morning. And then the Saturday and Sunday is like Friday and Saturday nights, Saturday and Sunday in the morning. So
Basically, during the weekend, night hours start later.
And if you are confused still about that, there's the tenting policy, which will be going out on, and we'll be publishing that on our like, social media and other things for you to look at, which has it in more depth, all of these hours in a little more detail. In terms of black tenting, there's also the ordering of black tenting. So if you all start at the same time, essentially black tents are ordered. You guys hit the next one. Yep. Based off of another trivia test. So this trivia test would happen probably sometime in like during tenting, either late January, early February, somewhere around there. And that would be a test about all Duke history, all Duke basketball history from anytime, anything's fair game. And on top of that, there's also attendance events. So throughout tenting, there'll be like women's basketball games or tennis games or wrestling matches, other things where the more people of your tent who show up, the more points you can get up to a certain amount. And essentially that also can boost your spot in the line. And then also we have like, you see these posters. We'll have poster contests, tent decorations. People sometimes, I remember it was like Cameron Outdoor Stadium one time where they had a little like deck in the front that had like a 3-point line on it or something. And people have just movie posters with like the players on it, some fun stuff. Other than that, so basically this will order tents that all start on the first day of black tenting. So if there's more than 70 groups and everyone takes a test, it'd be 70 groups that are being ordered in this way. And after black tenting, on January 23rd, you'll go to blue tenting. So blue tenting essentially, now you only have to have 6 people at night and 1 during the day. And that goes up till February 6th. And in the case that there's not more than 70 groups that register for black tenting, you can potentially register up to that 70 group capacity and start during blue tenting if you wanted to, but you'd automatically be behind everyone else who started before you. And then there's also something that if you put the dirty or the word dirty in front of black tenting or blue tenting, so dirty black or dirty blue, it basically just references if there's availability in Kville and you start after the first day of a phase. So like black tenting starts on January 9th. But let's say there were only 60 groups that registered, there'd be 10 more spots capacity. So if you registered to start January 12th, you would be a dirty black tent and you'd automatically be behind all those other groups that started before you. But you can still register, and that's up to the 70 groups still. So if there are 70 groups that start on the first day of black tenting from a potential entry trivia test, then there wouldn't be any more availability to start tenting. You can get on a wait list, but the next chance to start tenting, Dan will tell you a little about it.
Yeah, so if you don't do black tenting or blue tenting or dirty black or dirty blue, then the next option is white tenting or flex tenting. So this is the last of our 3 periods of tenting. It's the most relaxed. You only need to have 1 person during the day and 2 people at night. It starts February 6th and ends February 23rd. And if you are starting as a white or flex tent, then next slide, please. The process to do that is called Race to the Secret Spots. So basically you will register and there's going to be a scavenger hunt. Details about exactly how that'll work will come out later. So make sure you join the listserv right before you leave here today. But basically what Race to the Secret Spots is we'll send out a bunch of clues. There are 6 hidden spots around campus where line monitors will be hidden. You got to run around, try to get them all. check in with them all. And it's like a golf score. If you're the first team to show up to a certain spot, then you get 1 point, and whoever ends with the least amount of points goes first in line.
Oh my God, Martha, you look
The
so
first
good.
30 top scores in the race to the secret spots are all going to be white tents. We have 30 spots allotted for white tents, and then the next 30 are going to be for flex tents. So numbers 31 through 60 are going to be for flex tents. And then anyone who isn't in those top 60 spots, if there's more than 60 tents in the race of the secret spots, will be placed on a wait list for rollover for black tenting. So basically, if anyone misses 2 checks and gets booted, then we draw from the wait list after that.
And just to add on to that, essentially, you'll have to figure out these spots because we'll release riddles. So like 6 riddles, for example, that will hint at places in West Campus. We'll tell you in advance, like sort of a perimeter where these places could be, and then we'll release the riddles all at the same time on multiple social media platforms, and then it sort of starts there.
So that is how you become a white or flex tent. And the difference between white tents and flex tents is that flex tents are not guaranteed a spot in Cameron on game day. White tents are, we have space. Flex tents, there's the chance that you might not get in. It's not necessarily a great chance. I think historically we've done a pretty good job of getting most flex tents in, if not all.
Historically, all flex tents have gotten in.
Yeah.
It's historically,
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if I allowed to.
but we just don't talk about numbers.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to make any absolute claims, but historically, but you know, we can't guarantee anything. We don't know what numbers this year are going to look like. But yeah, white tents or flex tents are not guaranteed a spot. And that way we don't have a walk-up line for the UNC game. If you want to go to the UNC game, you have to tent. And that's how it goes.
What's the best way to guarantee a spot in Cameron?
Best way to guarantee a spot in Cameron is to start out as early as you can, sign up for black tenting. If more than 70 groups sign up to black tent and there ends up being a quiz, study as hard as you can for it. Oh, sorry. Can people hear me in the back? Sorry.
You guys be a little quiet.
Yeah, my bad. Best way to study or to guarantee yourself a spot in Cameron is get to Kville early, sign up to be a black tent if it means, you know, the most to you, and then study for that test if there is one. And if you still don't get it, then try your hardest at Race to the Secret Spots. And yeah, just try your best and hopefully you'll get yourself a spot.
Okay, there was one question on Zoom. Is the test
Yes.
scored individually or as a team?
Both written tests are team group tests. So you'll be there as your entire tent group. I think we do them in Cameron Indoor. So you'll be,
The second one is not in Cameron.
okay. The entry test will be in Cameron Indoor. So you'll probably be in a circle on the ground, passing around sheets of paper. Make sure you bring plenty of pencils and pens for everyone in your group.
You'll have 1 hour. Essentially, everyone will start at the same time. And then after that, when the test is done, it's like pretty strict. You're done. We'll get a turnaround pretty quick about whether you, if this entry test happens, whether you get a spot in tenting or not.
We're gonna save the rest of the questions till the very end, but we'll answer them all then.
Okay.
So essentially, yeah, this sounds like a lot. I mean, it is a lot. You're spending a lot of time outside in your tent with, hopefully a great group of 12 people or 11 other people. But there is time where you won't necessarily have to be in the tent. So for tenting, this doesn't apply to any walk-up line, any other standard walk-up line for any games, but for tenting, after any check, day check, night check, you'll get 1 hour of grace. So typically a check will happen, and then on the listserv, we'll send out a text saying, just confirming that the check happened and telling you when the grace period ends. And then after that, make sure the appropriate number of people are back. There's also grace before and after men's and women's basketball games. If it's a home game, it's 2 hours of grace before the official tip start time of the game. For away games, it's 1 hour on either end. Before and after the game, you get 1 hour if it's an away game, 2 hours if it's a home game for both men's and women's basketball games. If it gets below 25 degrees Fahrenheit, then you'll also get, wait, yeah, right? Correct. Just below 25 degrees Fahrenheit, yeah, you get grace. Then also, as you can see in the photo, there's like snow and some of these tents collapse. I think this was 2 years ago. And so if the tents collapse, stuff like that, or if there's just a lot of snow, heavy rain, thunderstorms, lightning, we'll send out like a text. I'm pretty sure we use like the Dark Sky app to sort of follow the weather. That's sort of our official way of monitoring it. So if you have that app or want to get that app.
It's also like, there's a little thing on the front of the Kayville website that shows our official Kayville weather. So if you're ever not sure what source we're using, if you go to KayvilleNation.com, that's going to show right in the front page what weather source we're using.
Yes. And then also here at the very bottom, attendance events, of course, if you're going to something related to tenting, whether it be taking a trivia test, attendance event, or anything else that comes up, we'll emphasize in advance the areas that count as Kayville. And then after grace, there's also P-checks. So essentially after white tenting ends, you'll have completed the sort of group part of tenting. But there's still one more thing to guarantee your spot at the UNC game. And at this point, it solely depends on you. If you, basically what happens is here on February 25th, the Friday, which is the weekend before the game, essentially there'll be a concert. And after the concert, there's also like throughout the whole night, there'll be 5 checks that we call. You have to make 3 of them on your own. So it could be any combination of the 3, but it only depends on you. So if you don't make it, but everyone else in your team makes it, they'll all be fine. It no longer depends on other things. And sometimes things come up, and we'll also mention that if there's some other circumstance that's preventing you from making it that day, since it is only one night, let us know. Contact the head line monitor email, and we can have makeup P checks on a different night. But only do this if you really can't make that day. You really, I mean, P checks is a really fun time, but it's also just easiest if everyone can make that day, if you can.
Okay, so a big question that comes up every year is how to attend non-Carolina games while you're tenting, if you automatically get in, or what that process is. And the answer is it's completely different. In terms of non-Carolina games, it doesn't matter if you're tenting or not tenting, the process is the same. Tenters don't get preference in the walk-up line for non-Carolina games. There are separate checks between walk-up line checks and tenting checks, and those will be announced during the check as needed over the bullhorn. And same rules apply. There is no grace for walk-up line. So if you're tenting and also in a walk-up line, and we call a tent check and a walk-up line check at the same time, you don't get grace for the walk-up line. You still get grace for tenting, but not for the walk-up line. We can still call a check anytime after that. There's no special privileges. There is some inherent advantage to tenting when it comes to being in a walk-up line, since you're already basically living in Kayville, but the rules are all the same. You still need to have a third of your group there at all times, random checks, same process.
So yeah, essentially, whenever you start tenting, whether it be black tenting, blue tenting, white tenting, there's a lot of things we recommend, or sort of you will need. First is a tent. You have to get a non-flammable store-bought tent. I mean, make sure it's non-flammable. It's very important. Also, other things. So essentially, when you set up the tent, some things to keep in mind. You'll probably want to find some high ground spot in Kayville. There are low ground spots. I mean, if it rains, that's where the water's going to go. So then you'll have to find pallets. And basically, when you go into Kayville, you'll lay out these like wooden pallets that you might see at like a farmer's market, something like that. And then oftentimes people will lay like cardboard on top of that to just make it flat because pallets have like holes in them. Maybe put some sort of rug or other sort of flat material over it to add some cushion. And then you put the tent. And then of course you'll want to have a sleeping bag. It's pretty cold, warm clothes. Sometimes people just stash extra blankets in the tent, extra like a hat, gloves, anything really. The hand warmers, a shoe bin is really nice. You can put it inside the tent so shoes aren't just going everywhere and making the tent really dirty when Kayville gets like muddy sometimes after it rains. But also you're not leaving your shoes outside to where they get flooded or get soaked whenever it rains. Sometimes people have chairs, just sort of like lawn chairs or lanterns, because you'll probably be spending a lot of time there, might likely be doing some of your work there. It's nice to be as comfortable as possible. And then in addition to having a sleeping bag, you'll want to have an air mattress or sometimes just like a foam. There's like those eggshell foam sort of mattresses. Tons of great stores to look for these things, or just online too. And then of course decorations. You want to make your tent your own. Sometimes people put lights, put balloons, posters, whatever you want to make it sort of feel homey. So
In years past, with the pallets, we've had some issues with pallets going missing from, say, local stores, and then they get really kind of bummed out about it. So we've eliminated that issue. There will be an 18-wheeler, like a truck load of pallets that we procured. The line monitors helped along, and we had almost 700 pallets come in for that day. So do not go get pallets from other places. Please. So provide them for you.
In other words, all black tents will have pallets provided.
100%. So please, black tenting, don't borrow pallets from anywhere else.
And yeah, just to close it off, in terms of communication, the headline monitor email is there. That's for any questions you have about anything related to basketball or Kayville. And then if you have tenting specific questions, you can still ask the headline monitor email if you want, but you can also direct that to the tenting email, tenting@kayvillenation.com. And cannot stress enough, sign up for the listserv.
Yeah.
It'll be.
Let's do, right now, before we answer any questions, we're gonna give you all 2 minutes to go to that listserv link right there and sign up for the listserv if you're not already on it. That's how we send out all communications about everything. So that's a really important place to be registered.
And then,
Sign up, Lenny.
yeah, so.
No, very
and then after you sign up, if anyone has questions, feel free to shout them out or
What happens if someone in your group or like
Great question. So so we'll repeat the question for people on Zoom. They're asking what happens if / when people in your tent get COVID. So we've been talking about that a lot. As of right now, our standard sort of policy will be if 1 to 2 members of your tent during black or blue tenting come down with COVID, then the general procedure will be you have that many people less required for those nights and day checks. And then that will roll over into the next period. So if you're in black tenting and one of your tent members comes down with COVID, then you only need 9 people during those nights. But then say it's like 4 nights of black tenting that they miss, then in blue tenting, instead of 6 people a night, you'll need 7 people a night for 4 nights. So it'll roll over, and that's another thing is communicate, email headlinemonitor@gmail.com as soon as you get a positive test. If you do, just keep everyone alerted. And additionally, if you have more than 3 people or extenuating circumstances, or people get COVID during white tenting, there's a lot of stuff that'll come up and we can deal with that on a case-by-case basis. Just be sure to communicate with us, and we'll deal with it as needed.
Yeah, it's laid out in the, it's laid out in the policy too, so if you forget, it's not on the slide, but it's there.
Yes.
Does it also apply to other ones? It's on a case-by-case basis, so to email us and we'll assess.
Yeah, so generally, any sort of illness, especially COVID, but any sort of illness, if there's something that will prevent you from being able to get to the tent, then email the headline monitors, let them know as soon as you possibly can, and then we can figure out accommodations as needed. Sorry, can you? Oh, yes. So there are no extension cords allowed to go into people's tents or anything like that. There will be a library study tent that has a lot of power strips that's up sort of by Cameron on the concrete in that area. And then portable chargers for your phone are a lifesaver. Would highly recommend getting one of those. But you can't have outlets in your tent just because of fire problems. Same with portable heaters. We can't do anything like that.
Who's playing DJs?
We don't know. That's not really.
That's a DUU question.
Travis.
Oh, boy.
Okay, okay.
Just to clarify, so testing just if there's lots of.
Correct.
So technically, once those dates hit, everyone in Kville, all tents, no matter where you started, will be doing those rules, that number of people. But to start during that phase is only possible if there's still spots in that 70 limit capacity before white tenting starts.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
We'll get back to it.
Well,
I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think
within reason.
there's definitely been some big tents in the past, especially some people will make their own, but it's definitely. I mean, at some point there will have to be 100 to 130 sort of tents in Kville. So just be thoughtful of others.
In years past, we've done a grid where we've given everybody a spot, and as long as your tent fits in the spot, then you're good. So we'll work on that with facilities so that you know how big your tent can be.
Generally, search for a tent that sleeps 10 people. That's usually a good size. I don't think we've had problems since I've been here with tent size, but if there's a mega tent, that's we'll address it. Go ahead.
How exactly will the check-in work? I'm using the bathroom.
Yes, so bathrooms during tenting season, IM gym will be unlocked and it's recommended that you use those bathrooms. We will be monitoring those to make sure that people aren't camping out in there during checks, but generally if you're going in just to use a bathroom and coming out, then you should be fine. If you ever do run into a problem, sometimes there's just miscommunication and mistakes happen. And you want to appeal a missed check if you aren't allowed to check in for something, then afterwards you can email tenting@kvillenation.com and we can again sort that out if there's a problem.
And one thing I thought of that I think we might have not mentioned was essentially you get after 2 bumps or 2 missed checks, you get bumped from the line. So basically you either go to the back of the line or the back of the wait list, whatever it is. And so essentially, to be more specific, and let's say you miss 1 check in black tenting and then you miss another check in black tenting, you'd be bumped. But if you miss 1 check during the black tenting phase, once blue tenting starts, you sort of get a clean slate. You go back to 0. So then you could miss another one. And then if you miss the second one during blue tenting, then you'd be bumped. But every time the phase changes, it resets. But you get, after your second missed check, you'll be bumped from the line.
Oh, to answer the question about Wilson Gym does not count for anything, so you have to use I in gym if you're just doing that.
That'll be online. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna run through the Zoom questions and then we'll have time for more of your guys' questions. All right,
That's fine.
the first question is, in a typical year, do all 70 black tech spots fill up within 24 hours?
Sorry, can you, what?
In a typical year, do all 70 black tent spots fill up in 24 hours?
Historically, in a typical year, no. I think it's happened 3 times that they've had to do a test. But again, based on the attendance of the games this year and how early people are getting to the walk-up lines, we would not be surprised if this year is a year that we require an entry test.
Do line monitors sleep in K-Bell too?
They do this year.
Historically, we have not, but this year there will be an undisclosed amount of line monitors sleeping somewhere in Kville at night.
In a line monitor tent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
in a line monitor.
We're not gonna just knock on your tent door.
You're not bunking in with everyone?
No. You never know.
All right. I'm gonna answer the next question. It's about surveillance. So, guys, this is gonna be really important stuff too, especially with COVID. So we had a question on Zoom about if there's gonna be surveillance test sites in Kville. Not officially yet. We're still working with that administration and everyone that we need to work with, but we're hoping that there will be. So that should be helpful for getting all of that done and still testing at the same time. So, yeah. Okay. Can the tent have rigid walls and a roof, or does it have to be a literal tent?
I think something that's really important is that you make sure it's like not flammable. I mean, like even if something says it's not flammable, yeah, store bought. I know in the past.
People on Zoom cannot hear you.
I know in the past, there's like this tent that is called Das Boot, and they build their own structure. They have their own roof. Yeah, and I know also other things. People sometimes have like a teepee or just unconventional designs that they sleep in. It doesn't have to be the conventional tent, just whatever you want to make of it.
It just can't be permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't dig boats around and fill concrete in the ground and put up a flagpole and tie a tent.
All right. All right.
Hey guys.
All right, we have another question about kind of some of our COVID policy.
One more.
So we had another question about COVID policy. So the question was, wouldn't the rest of the tent have to isolate since they would have been exposed to the person who tests positive? In that case, so currently that'd be only if people are unvaccinated. In that case, you would just let us know when you let us know that someone has tested positive. You'd say, you know, we have this many people who now have to quarantine for this many nights. And then we would sort that out with you, really just keeping those communication lines open, but the whole tent wouldn't have to isolate because the CDC is not saying that anymore. So it would just be anyone who has tested positive and anyone who is not vaccinated. The time of registration matter for black tent?
Time of registration matters just for the first 24 hours. Yeah, after that first 24 hours, if it's full by then you won't, you know, if you register 36 hours after it opens and there's already been 70 plus tents that have registered by then you won't be counted on the list for taking the entry test. So just as long as you get in within that first 24 hours after registration opens.
All right, can you sleep in the tent remotely?
No.
Oh, that's, all right. Is there a substance-free part of Tayville?
Not a designated one.
If that is something, so substance-free part of KVille, if that is something that anyone's worried about, feel free to reach out to us and we can totally work on coming up with a solution to that. Currently, there's not, but that doesn't mean there never will be.
I think all of Duke's existing substance rules on campus apply to KVille. And then during P-checks, LDOC alcohol rules will apply. With stuff like no glass bottles, no more than 6 drinks per person. Standard stuff.
Can your group be in smaller tents or does it have to be one tent?
You can be in 2 smaller tents if you want. It's not quite as fun, in my opinion, but as long as you're in KVille, technically you don't even have to have a tent, but that's very not recommended. As long as you're in KVille, you're good to do whatever you want.
So just real quick, for all of you to know, the administration, we obviously didn't test last year due to COVID and all the things, and we weren't allowed to be in Cameron anyway. This is a top priority for campus, is for this to be able to happen. And so it is absolutely one of the best traditions and the most fun, but you will have a blast. And we do everything we can as sports administrators, as far as the athletic department goes. We want to cater to all of you in KVille. We want it to be great, we want it to be safe. We also want it to continue. So communication to this group of people is key. They will help you. They are not here to fuck you over, okay? They are here to help you, okay? That's what they want to do. And we want it to be fun. We want there to be parties. We want there to be loud music. We want all of that stuff to happen. Please let that happen, but do it responsibly and communicate with them, okay? Okay.
All right, the next is, when will we be allowed to start putting up our tents for black tenting? We don't know exactly what time yet, but that'll happen that Sunday, January 9th at some point during the day. So the time you register for black tenting in the first 24 hours is pretty much the day you start tenting, or does every black tent start on the same day?
Every black tent that registers in the first 24 hours will start on the same day. If you don't register before black tenting starts, or if KVille isn't full and you want to register as a dirty black or a blue tent, then you can register anytime before you start tenting. But you know, that's as space allows.
Is there financial aid with tenting? There is no formal financial aid program, but if that's a concern for you, feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to help you figure out a solution. So if more than 70 tents do black tenting in the first 24 hours and you don't make the cut for the first 70, when is the next opportunity to join tenting? That'd be white tenting, so during that race and secret spot.
Unless you get in off the wait list.
All right, and then, so are there any more questions from our in-person people? Yeah.
That'll only be known after that 24-hour window is closed, I believe. And then, you know, we'll be monitoring it as well. Pretty much once we hit 70 within that first 24 hours, when, we'll send out an email on the listserv and say, like,
Listen up.
this has been reached, but that registration window will remain open for that 24 hours. You know, if you're the 90th tent in the first 24 hours, you still take the test to get in. Right, I don't think we'll have that.
It doesn't matter how many people have registered, and that won't be public until after that 24-hour window is closed.
I will say on the website though, that you can see, like, once tenting starts, there'll be sort of like a number of how many tents are currently in KVille. So if there aren't 70 that start, You can sort of see how many spots, I guess, there's left in the capacity. And then once white tending happens, you can also see the number.
There's a question over here, maybe? No? Any, yeah?
I have a question. It was, like, what determines the, like, the entry, like, the order of the black tents?
The order of the black tents to get into the game?
Like, no, like, on the night.
So on the 9th, there is no order. All the black tents are just in Kayville. We will, I think, randomly assign like letters. So it'll be tents A through Z and then AA through whatever letters we need. We'll go up to triple letters if we need. But then you're all just kind of there mixed together, and then order is determined throughout the season from attendance events and spirit points and the trivia test and all of that.
Also, wait, I have another question.
Sure.
Like, what's the deal with, like, you have visitors?
I mean, that's like sort of, yeah, that's up to you. You're definitely allowed to have, you're definitely allowed to host whoever you want in your tent if you want to, but like they can't count. Like you have to register the people when you register your group of 12 or whatever size group. And yeah.
Oh, guys, come on. We wake you up with a bullhorn.
Yes. For every check, we run around with a bullhorn. Someone in your tent should be able to hear it.
All right, we'll do one more question and then we're gonna wrap it up for tonight, but feel free to reach out to either of these emails if you have any more questions. Anyone? Are there any?
That's on Zoom.